Scott Brown back on the show, and we were all just getting a giggle. Welcome back to the show, Scott, about your article, 5 Ways President Biden is Ruining America's Summer Fun. And I was like, oh, it's just going to be just another political, airing of grievances. But no, these are some things that are sort of falling through the cracks that should be getting more attention. Number one, the airline. Scott Brown, Joe Biden's ruining your airline fun, your travel fun for the summer.
Well, sadly, it was not hard to write this. I sat down one day and I'm like, man, things just seem out of whack a little bit. I mean, I go to the grocery store and things are out of whack, and I travel a fair amount. And, the Department of Transportation out of Buttigieg, their fix is to get rid of so-called junk fees, which is, does very little to obviously solve the problems at the actual airlines. The Department of Justice is blocking all sorts of mergers, JetBlue and Spirit, JetBlue and American. And the immediate result was, the increased lines, cutting of services in areas that, quite frankly, need it. So there's no common sense by letting, the American people and letting the private sector solve these problems. And, it needs to change.
Well, yeah, and you brought up JetBlue and Spirit were going to merge. They blocked it, and so the result of that is JetBlue just went out of business. What was that better? So you're right. There's been a lot of tiny little paper cuts in the airline industry that have sort of ground the wheels of summer travel a little bit. Number 2 on your list was gas prices, and we all know he's not a big fan of the oil industry.
Well, I just want to correct you. It was Spirit, actually, not JetBlue. God, if JetBlue's out of business, then I'm in trouble. But gas prices, they're incredible. Up here in the Northeast, I'm in New Hampshire. I just paid $3.89 when I got back from New Zealand. It was $1.88 with my discount card at Sam's or BJ's or whatever. And yes, he's been demonizing the energy industry forever. We were energy independent. And one way to get our national debt down is to be energy independent, export energy. And what the president do during this time period? He released our strategic reserves, a portion of them, for gas because it's political. I know he didn't want it to be political, but it is. These are things that are an emergency, and they were filled by President Trump when the gas was at $1.82. We got all our oil and gas reserves filled. Well, now they're not. Well, God forbid something happens, and they're trying to lower the gas prices for a short period of time over the summer months, so people will kind of forget about the misery they've been having for quite a while now.
Well, look, I agree. You agree. A lot of the people we talk to agree, but still people like the lady you ran against, Elizabeth Warren, she looks like she might get reelected in November. A lot of people, they seem to like these policies.
Well, it depends on what state you're in. I know they don't like him in Texas. They don't like him in New Hampshire. You have a Republican governor, Senate, House, Executive Council. But Massachusetts, they're very liberal. They just want to, they're spending $1 billion on people that are here illegally versus not taking care of our veterans and others. So, it's upside down in many parts of our country. That's why it's very important. And what I'm finding, no matter where I go, is that people are reflecting back when President Trump was in office. The border was secure. Obviously, fentanyl wasn't as bad. We had our allies that, were pushed and trusted us. Our foes feared us. You had the situation with interest rates, with inflation, you name it. And now compared to what's happening now, and that's the choice. You want to stay as it is, or do you want to go and have some reductions all across the board so you can pay your bills?
Right, but that's why I like talking to you on the show. You're one of the few people who've been able to go into a blue state and get some of these people who are on Team Blue to actually vote for Team Red. And, how did you do it? How could we do it now? Like, well, what are some of the philosophical approaches that worked for you that we could do in 2024?
Yeah, listen, the common sense stuff. You got to talk about pocketbooks and wallets. What's going on in your homes, in your cities. The crime is out of control. You go to places like Boston or Manchester. I mean, D.C. is like a third world country. That's on national. That's D.C. Okay, our capital is there, and you have all cities and towns all across the country. New York City, forget it. Chicago, forget it. People are seeing what's going on, and they're actually using a little bit more common sense. So I talk about these things versus the personalities. Yeah, people don't like President Trump. Great. 80% of the people don't want Biden or Trump. That's great. But bottom line is, this is the choice. And, do you want to have it like it was with the secure border, with low inflation, with our energy independence and our economy booming? Or do you want to have more of the same? The illegals coming in, he wants to invite, by the way, your Texas mayors. Isn't that nice? What is it, like 6 months left before the election? He finally wants to do something. I hope they don't go, quite honestly. It's a joke.
Well, Scott Brown, it was amazing what you did to even get a toehold in a blue state like that. So I love asking people like you who've actually had success in changing people's minds, because I think that's what we're on the mission to do right now. All these people that come out of college that are all on Team Blue, a big chunk of them are going to evolve into Team Red as they get older. I just wish we could speed that process up somehow.
Well, I'm seeing, a lot of younger voters that, they're basically working at the, in fast food places. They're making $20 an hour. That's great. But, people who have been there in their same age category, been there for a couple of years, they're making $20 an hour. They say, I've been here for a couple of years. Why don't I get a raise? So there's a lot of discourse, and people, they still are affected by the crime. They're still affected by inflation. They're still living at their parents' home versus the ability to potentially buy a home. And, they're recognizing like, geez, I don't like Trump, but, it was a lot better. I don't have to live with my parents anymore.
All right, Scott Brown, Trump had the guilty counts come down on him at the end of last week. Since then, he's raised $200 million. How important is that?
Well, obviously, money is important, but more importantly, it's a sad day for our country. You have a liberal state, liberal jury, liberal judge, liberal DA said he was going to do it. He made it a campaign. They wanted to label him a convicted felon before the election. And I said right from the beginning that this is like a chess match. This is far from over. There's so many appellate issues in this case. And, you still have the Supreme Court potentially weighing in on these types of things. I mean, nothing has ever happened ever in the history of our country, taking a federal campaign issue that the Federal Election Commission didn't want anything to do. And by the way, don't forget Obama's, amazing, violation of campaign finance laws. Imagine if we start this precedent. Imagine if Texas said, you know what, we want to bring in Obama for all his campaign violations. And then, he did a non-disclosure with somebody. We want to go in and investigate all that. We're opening up a very bad Pandora's box here. I think it gets reversed on appeal. And, good. I'm glad he's being able to compete because he's been handcuffed, no pun intended, and in the courtroom, not able to get out there and campaign like Biden.
All right, good stuff. Former Senator Scott Brown on The James Show. Check out his new article, 5 Crazy Ways President Joe Biden's Ruining America's Summer Fun. I found it on foxnews.com. So thank you, Scott.
God bless everybody.